Perfect. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Learn to Hunt. This is how to obtain your hunting license in BC. It's a common question a lot of people have. How is how do I do it? It can be overwhelming. There's a lot of information, but we've got a couple of the best in the province that can have dialed it down into 45 minutes or so of PowerPoint and a little back and forth conversation, and that'll help get you started. So without further ado, I will turn it over to Travis and Tiffany from Silvercore.
Hey everyone, glad you guys could tune in here. We're in beautiful British Columbia with the trees around us right now. We actually weren't planning to be holding the presentation here, but Tiffany broke her foot pretty severely in a few places there a couple nights ago. We're supposed to be hunting right now in an area that has some forest fires around it. So we ended up in a bit of a campground, which has the amenities needed for somebody with an injured foot. And we're doing some grouse hunting and steelhead fishing in our area right now. So hopefully reception is good and everyone can pick up on what we're getting here. So how to obtain a hunting license in British Columbia. Tiff, did you want to take it away or do you want me to keep rolling here?
Sure. I will. I'll keep going, and I'm on some morphine, so I'll keep it as on track as I can. But we'll probably jump back and forth between Travis and myself. But thank you very much for coming in tonight, and hopefully we can share some useful information with you guys. But just a quick introduction: who Travis and I are. We run a company called Silvercore Outdoors. We teach PAL courses, core courses, wide array of online courses. Travis actually has a podcast called the Silvercore Podcast. It's a great reference for people if they want to find interesting conversations and stories and learn something about hunting and fishing and just the outdoors world. As well, we run live fire courses and we have an outdoors club. So super brief, covering what we do. Our relationship with the BCWF specifically, we do a lot of work with the Federation. We're massive supporters of the BCWF. So any of you out there that aren't members, we highly recommend it. They do fantastic work. We help run and work with Federation on a number of their women's programs courses. I just did a core course a couple weeks ago. We do some live firework, as well as we are the approved provider of the online core course for the BCWF. So if you decide to, after this presentation, you decide you want to go do your core course, that's another option, is the online course. So that's Travis and I. I think we're ready to roll into the actual presentation so you guys can get started and start learning about how to get your hunting license. So Trav, you want to go to the next slide?
There
Okay.
we go.
So we have a little infographic here. It just runs you through the step-by-step process because it's not super it's not just one step to get it. There's a few steps involved. So first of all, first step is you want to take the core course. Okay. Oops, sorry, I'm going to back up here. We've got the infographic that just runs through all the different options. So first you take the core course. There's exams at the end of the core course. You pass those, and then you submit your paperwork that you get at the end of that course to the BCWF, and they're going to issue you with some paperwork, and then you submit it to the government, and then you get what's called a FWID. Once you do that, you can start the process of buying licenses and hunting. That's a very, very quick, very simplified step-by-step process that we're going to break down and go into much further detail now. Okay.
There he is.
There. Sorry. Okay. So first of all, the purpose and importance of the core course. So we're massive believers in this program. It has done wonders for safety, for education, conservation efforts. It's a really great course. We see lots of people take the course that have no intention of hunting. It's a very informative, fantastic course. So the course itself is designed to educate hunters about safety, ethics, and regulations in relation to hunting. It emphasizes responsible hunting practices and conservation principles. And Anyone can take this course as long as you're 10 years old or older. So it is designed for a 10-year-old to take the course and pass it, as long as they're going to sit down, pay attention, and be invested in the course. Okay. As for course content, uh, it covers topics such as conservation, ethics, laws and regulations, first aid and survival, firearm safety, animal identification, bird identification. And the newest chapter that was developed just a couple of years ago is Indigenous peoples and hunting in BC. So on top of all those chapters that they cover, there's some practical firearms handling, a fair amount of that. And they also will go through the book right here called the Hunting and Trapping Synopsis. This is an incredibly important piece of information that you're going to learn how to use and read and understand, because you're going to use that all the time when you start hunting in BC. Travis, did you have anything to add before I move on?
Yeah. Well, for somebody who wants to get into hunting, there is something called Schedule C animals. So if somebody said, "Hey, look, I want to try out this hunting thing and see what it's all about," Schedule C animals in British Columbia is something you can Google. They're species, little critters that don't require a hunting license. For most of the animals out there that people would consider an animal that they'd want to go out and hunt or associate with hunting, you're going to need what's called a Fish and Wildlife ID. And in order to get that, they need to show that you have that basic safety training and some first aid and an idea of navigation, outdoor survival. The core course is designed to keep you safe, and it's designed to keep you legal. So an understanding of the laws, an understanding of the ethics, and what the common protocol is out there in the field. If you're brand new to hunting, you might not understand what some of the commonalities are, whereas somebody who grew up in the outdoors or grew up hunting, it might be second nature for them. So really the core course is designed to make sure you're safe and make sure you're legal, and you can achieve your core course either through online studying with an examiner, reading the book, going through it yourself, or if you say, "Look, I think I'm smart enough and I know enough about all of the information that's in there. I'm just going to challenge it." So there's a few different roads that'll allow you to get that core course, which in turn will get you that graduation certificate from the Wildlife Federation, and in turn will get your Fish and Wildlife ID or your FWID. A lot of people will choose some sort of formal education process because they don't want to go in and just challenge this test and do poorly on it. When you do the test, there's going to be a written test and there's going to be a practical test. The written test is going to be multiple choice. It's going to be true and false. You've got 80 questions. You've got to get 60 of the 80 in order to get through that portion of it, and which is what, 75%. And if you're successful there, you go on to a practical handling portion where you're going to be using firearms that were once live and once worked, but are now deactivated and disabled. I'm getting a text here saying I'm jumping far ahead, so I'll quit jumping as ahead. But I figured what I'd do here is just kind of lay out the framework of the few different ways that you can go through the core course, kind of what that content looks like. And it looks like our next note here is finding an examiner, and I'll turn it back over to Tiffany.
Hey there, guys. Yeah, I think one point we want to get across with the core course is a common point that we see with people is that they come in and there's an expectation that the core course is going to teach you how to hunt. It's going to teach you how to build a tree stand and how to hunt whitetail or mule deer or moose or whatever you're going to go after. And that's not the intention of the course. The intention of the core course is, like Travis said, to give you sort of a basic foundation so that you can go off and spend the rest of your lifetime learning how to hunt. It's a framework. It teaches you a little bit about first aid. It teaches you, the basics of laws and regulations. But these things change over time. So it's not a set in stone. You take this course and you're going to be the next Daniel Boone. It really is just a starting point. We always recommend to our students when they come in and take the core course that They might want to look at taking, another first aid course or a wilderness first aid course, or navigation courses or live fire. The list is endless. So you can always, there's so many different things that you can do to build off of the framework that the core course starts with. So it's an important thing to understand is that it's a 2-day course, and there's only so much you can cover. What our intention is with people taking the core course is that they're going to go out and they're going to have the tools to stay legal and stay safe when they're out there hunting. Okay. Next, so after we understand what course content is. Next, you're going to want to find an examiner and you're going to want to book a course. So the BCWF has a number of people called examiners that will offer the core course and give you a test and sign off on you when you're done if you've passed. So where you find that information is on the BCWF website. They will have a list of all the approved examiners. So you just find that list, select whoever is in your area, and you can start contacting them. Many of them have websites where you can find a whole schedule of courses and locations, and you can book it right on the website. Some are a little bit more old school. You just call them up and book over the phone. Whatever works for you and works for them, and you just coordinate it with them. And then after you contact your examiner, book your course, you go into the class, like I said, for 2 days, 2 full days. At the end of the 2 days, you write your tests. So like Travis mentioned, there is a written test, 80 questions. You need to get a score higher than 60 on that written test to pass. And on top of that, there is also a practical exam. If you have your firearm safety course and the physical paperwork after you've taken that exam, the firearms license is not sufficient. They want to see the actual paperwork from the exam that shows the course date and your score on the test. If you can show that to your examiner, you are exempt from the practical test in the core course. So you won't have to do it.
That's one point that we get questioned a lot on. And people will have done their firearms course and they'll say, well, I don't have to do my practical testing because I've done my firearms course. Isn't that correct? And since we had POLs, possession only license, and PALs, possession acquisition license, and all the POL holders at one point were made PAL holders without having to do any testing or training, having your license alone is not necessarily going to prove that you've done your safety training. So that's one key piece. If someone's going to be exempt from having to be able to do their practical safety training for the test, they're going to have to show proof that they've actually done the course. And that proof is going to be in the form of their course report. That course report can be obtained either from an old shoebox if they tucked it away somewhere, from their examiner if they've kept it, from the firearms program, or if they can't find that anywhere, they're going to have to go through and do the practical testing again, which if they're a holder of a firearms license, shouldn't be too very difficult for them. They just got to be safe with that firearm. Go ahead, Tiff.
Perfect. Okay. The other thing to note about the core course and the exams is that it is a closed book exam. There is a core manual that you can use to help study for the course, but you're not allowed to use that during the exam. What you are allowed to use is, again, the synopsis. Because there's questions on the exam that you won't know the answer to. They'll ask you bag limits or, specific questions on things that you're just not going to know. You're going to need to know where to find it in the synopsis to mimic an actual real life hunting situation, so you know how to hunt legally. Yeah. Okay. So let's see. Trav, you want to go to the next slide?
Pass course and get your paperwork. Practical testing.
Yes, thank you. Sorry. Thank you. Forgot to mention, once you're done, you've passed both tests, your examiner, they have paperwork in triplicate. They will take one sheet and give you the other two. One of those sheets you're going to hold on to for your own records. The other one you're going to give to the BCWF. Okay, so next one, we just have a image of someone there doing some practical work with a firearm, similar to what you're going to be doing on the core course or during the actual practical exam. You're just manipulating the firearms in a safe way, loading, unloading, things like that.
And this is one of those areas that quite often people can get quite nervous about. They'll be on the spot. You're one-on-one with an instructor. The instructor will ask you to pick up different types of firearms. You're going to have to be able to identify them and load them and unload them and show shooting positions and kind of use it in a field scenario, how you walk around. Um, the number one thing that you really want to make sure of when using this is just make sure you don't have fingers on the trigger and make sure the guns are pointed in the safe direction and talk your way through. Everything you're going to be using is going to be a firearm that will not actually go bang in your testing, in your practical testing, but you're going to treat it as if it could. And all the ammunition will be inert, as in it will not go bang if you put into a live firearm, but you're going to treat it as if it would. So if you just make sure you have these pointed in a safe direction and you adhere to the firearm safety practices that will have been covered in the course and take your time, then you're going to be able to kind of put those fears to the side a little bit because your instructor will have covered everything you'll need to know.
Okay, perfect. Okay, here we have an example of the actual paperwork that you're going to get on the core course. Just so you guys know what it looks like. Top section is all your personal information. The middle section is what the examiner will fill out after your test. And then the section on the bottom is what you're going to fill out when you provide the paperwork to the BCWF. Okay. So that should be, let's see here. Okay. So, Trev, you want to jump ahead?
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Okay. So we'll talk next about, we've mentioned a couple times what a FWID, I think Travis used it a number of times when he was discussing the core course. So a FWID is a fish and wildlife ID. And this whole process of going through the core course is really so you can get this number. And I guess if you think about it, it's kind of like your driver's license number. It's a number that's you're going to have for the rest of your life. It doesn't expire. It's just, that's your FWID number. Okay. Let's see. So once you get your core course, you take that paperwork, you send it off to the BCWF, and they will give you back a form called a graduation certificate. Once you get that graduation certificate, you can then upload it to a government website and they will give you a FWID. So if you've taken the online course, you don't have to pay the $30 fee because it's included in the cost of the approved BCWF online course. But for everyone else, if you self-study or do an in-person course, you just need to send this paperwork off to the BCWF with a check or information on your credit card for the $30 fee. Okay. So let's see here. Sorry. Yeah. So sorry, Travis. Okay, so submitting the forms to the BCWF can be done via mail, or you can go in person to the BCWF office in Surrey. You pay, like I said, you pay those $30 graduation fee for them to process your forms. You get your graduation certificate, and you submit the graduation certificate to the government. You can do this in a couple different ways. You can do it in person through any Service BC or Front Counter BC location, or you can do it online through the BC Hunting online website. And then once that's all processed on their online website, you are issued with a fish and wildlife ID. Okay. So who can get a hunting license? Resident hunters in BC have to be at least 10 years of age or older, and they have to hold a valid FWID. So as long as you're 10 years old, you're a resident of BC, and you have taken your core course and gotten your FWID, you can hunt in BC. Now, there's other opportunities for non-residents and non-resident aliens. And you can find, we're not going to go into it today because it can get quite specific with number of days resided in certain areas and things like that. But all that information on non-residents and non-resident aliens hunting opportunities, you can find in the synopsis. Right now, we're just going to talk about resident hunters.
Tiff, what's the difference
Um,
between a FWID and a hunting license?
okay, so a FWID is it's like a personal number attached to myself, and a hunting license would be like every year I have to go. Once I have my FWID, I'm using the online system. I log in and I purchase my hunting license for 2023, and I can purchase species tags or licenses. I could buy a migratory bird license. So that's a license is for a specific hunting a specific animal, or it's like an annual thing you have to buy to hunt. But my FWID doesn't change. It's just a number associated. So the government knows who I am as a hunter. Anything to add on that one?
No, I think you've got it. Just
Yeah.
sometimes people think that their FWID will allow them to go out and hunt and don't realize that they have to get a hunting license. And for those hunting licenses, in order to get that, you have to have a FWID. It's just sort of the steps in place there. And they'll say, well, if you're gonna get a hunting license, we want to make sure you're actually a BC resident. So there's going to be eligibility requirements that say you have to prove that you're a BC resident in order to be able to get your hunting license. And I think they do that. What, every 3 years is it? You have to prove that you still reside in British Columbia, Tiff?
Yeah, every 3 years you have to submit a document that proves your address, your current address, just so they can prove that you're still a resident of BC. There's like we said, there's a bunch of different options for non-residents and things like that, and as well considerations for uh, students attending out of province schools and military and things like that. So if you don't quite meet the strict BC resident hunter requirements, there may be special options for you, but you just have to verify and check on that one. But yeah, Fish and Wildlife ID, I guess a good way to look at it is it's like it's your passport to hunting and fishing in BC. So remember, it doesn't change. You don't have to renew it. Um, doesn't it doesn't expire as opposed to a license, which those licenses have a set time limit for when they can be used, and they need to be purchased. Although you pay for your core course, you pay for the graduation certificate from the BCWF, your FWID doesn't cost anything. So to actually get that number, there's no cost associated with that. Okay, so we'll move into license types. I will just go a little bit more in detail there. Sorry, Trev.
Sure.
Like we said, basic annual hunting license allows for hunting of various game species during open seasons. Okay, it's not can't just hunt deer from January 1st to December 31st. There's specific open seasons for when you can hunt, as well as your annual hunting license. If you're hunting specific species like migratory birds or big game, you also have to buy a species specific tag in addition to the basic hunting license. So, for example, let's say I was going to hunt moose this year. I would buy my hunting license for this year, and I would also buy a moose tag. So, permitted, provided I was hunting in an area that I was allowed to hunt moose. That's all I would need for that. Let's see. As well, on the government website where you can buy all the licenses, you can also enter something called limited entry hunting, which is basically like a lottery where you can obtain special permits for specific hunting areas and species, and it's allocated through a draw system. People get confused and they get very excited about the LEH, but it doesn't necessarily mean guaranteed better opportunities at successfully hunting an animal. It could just mean you can hunt a week earlier than everybody else could, but the animals might not be there yet. You never really know. It's just greater opportunity to hunt. So it's something that you can apply for through the government hunting website. Okay. And then want to go to the next slide? Okay. So that now we're going to jump into hunting regulations. So again, bring it up again, the hunting synopsis. This is super valuable piece of information there. It's a comprehensive guide to hunting regulations in BC. It provides essential information on hunting seasons, bag limits, legal firearms and ammunition that you can use on different animals, and other regulations. Now, something that's really important to consider with this document is that the information printed in the synopsis can change after printing and multiple times throughout the year, and it may affect your hunt. So it's really important that you use the printed off copy as a guide, but always refer to the online system for any changes that have happened so you're up to date. Okay. So in regards to importance of adhering to regulations, the penalties can be quite significant. Compliance with hunting regulations ensures wildlife conservation, sustainable hunting practices, and public safety. Violating hunting regulations can result in fines, license suspension, or pretty severe penalties. You could lose all the tools that you're using to hunt with. So if that means you're driving your F-350 and your side by side and your trailer, and you've got your fancy rifles and gear, all of that can be seized if you're caught violating hunting regulations. Okay, being ignorant of the regulations is no excuse. You need to educate yourself before you head out. Just a few key regulations to be aware of with hunting. Hunting seasons. Know the specific dates when hunting is permitted for different species. It does changes for the regions, changes for the species. It's variable depending on when you're going. Some species like bear has a spring and a fall season. Same with turkey. Most other animals is just a fall season for hunting. Some open and then close for a little bit, like with waterfowl. They'll have short little open seasons and then they close down and then they open up again a month or so later. So really be aware of if you're allowed to hunt or if you're not. Okay. The idea of bag limits, what that means, understand the maximum number of or size of animals that can legally be harvested. There's very specific information on tines or points on antlers. Understand that if you're hunting deer, if it's a point regulated season, the minimum amount of points it has to have, what defines a point, and it changes for different animal. Like caribou, there's a rear tine. You don't count that one. Other animals, they don't have a rear tine, but you count different points, and it really does vary per each animal that you're looking at. So make sure you're aware of it, what edible portion is on the animal, what part of the animal you're supposed to take with you, and things like that. So let's see what else. Legal firearms and ammunition. Familiarize yourself with the approved tools allowed for hunting. You can't hunt with a spear anymore in BC. You have to use firearms, you can use bows. There's now allowances for specific types of air guns. They talk about it in the synopsis, and these things change. So just make sure what you're hunting is an approved tool for hunting that specific animal. And then hunter ethics and responsibilities. Follow ethical guidelines such as proper animal handling, respect for private property, and reporting illegal activities. Okay. Do you want to pop over to the next? Trev, did you have anything to say before I move to the next slide?
No, I think you covered that for an intro course, intro to what this is all about. Definitely. We'll do a summation at the end just to kind of key it up into the simple points. But yes.
Yeah, we're just scratching the surface of the core course. Hopefully not scaring anyone, but we want to ensure people know that there's a lot to know, and it does take a little while, but there's lots of resources out there, so you can, as long as you know where to look, you can find it. I think the last slide here is just familiarizing yourself with local wildlife and their habitat, identification of species you intend to hunt, understanding the ecological role and conservation status. And then big important one, practice farm safety and adhere to principles that you've learned in your farm safety course. And be aware of and respect private property boundaries. These change. So really great tool that we found that we use. There's apps. We specifically use iHunter, but there's a few other ones. I think Hunt Buddy's another one. Everything's can just be held right on your phone, shows you where you are, if you're on crown land or private land, things like that. Makes it a lot easier than it used to be. So just check out those, be aware of where you are if you're legally allowed to hunt them or not. Okay. Last point, if you're out hunting, see anyone doing anything illegal, report it to the RAP line. So report all polluters and poachers. Make sure you take some pictures and send that off. Don't interfere, just record. Yeah.
I think the Federation's actually got an app for that too.
They do. Yeah.
Yes. So you can check the BCWF app and it can assist in monitoring and making sure that you're reporting poachers and polluters.
Yeah, because when people are doing things wrong, it reflects badly on all hunters. So we want to try to take care of it and do our best to be positive ambassadors for all hunters in BC. Okay. Yeah, that's the presentation. The last thing I'd say is I would just suggest everybody, they go off and go into hunting, that they look into joining a club or conservation group such as BCWF, foster a sense of community and support for conservation initiatives.
I think that's a big one too. Yeah. Because, people come through and they want to learn how to hunt, and they'll take the core course and they'll get their FWID and they're ready to get their hunting licenses. But like you said earlier, core course makes sure you're safe and makes sure you're legal and makes you understand the ethics and all these different things around it, but it doesn't actually teach you how to specifically hunt. And finding those mentors and getting that information to get out and hunt is something that is these groups like the Wildlife Federation is integral, because there's a language amongst hunters, there's a code of conduct amongst hunters, and some of it is written down and talked about, some of it is learned. So we'd highly recommend that one, and just check out the Federation's websites for different programs that they run. I think we've got one coming up in a couple of weeks, which will show people a little bit more in depth how to hunt and how to care for game meat and the rest.
It's a great way to meet people that are like-minded and potential hunting friends too. So highly recommend it. And it's a great way to put your money. Oh, yeah, perfect. Okay.
I'm just letting you guys finish. I took my course 15, 20 years ago, whatever it was. And I always learn, right? It's just the best way is just to act, as you said, find a mentor, find somebody that's got the commonality and listen and talk and exchange that information. Like, while I was listening to you guys, I was monitoring the Facebook groups, and somebody literally just said in one of the groups, how do I get my hunting license? How do I get my PAL? How do I interact and meet people? So I'm all right. Well, this presentation is live right now. So
that's amazing.
It's cool. It's great, right? We've got such, for 100,000 strong resident hunters in British Columbia, we're a really, really tight-knit group. We stand together. Unless you ask people where they shot that big muley or that big, and that big
Zippermouth Creek.
Exactly. No Tellum Road, right? Zippermouth, all the fun stuff. But I do find in everything that I'm involved in that hunters are very, very giving of the camaraderie that's necessary to learn. And that's how I got into it. I moved up to PG 17 years ago. Knew nothing about, like, I had my license, but I knew nothing about hunting, no idea where to go. So I did a post on one of the old forums that used to pre-social media and said, hey, I'm new to the area. Where's good? Within 2 hours, I had a private message from a guy saying, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, nothing. He goes, you want to go bear hunting?
Oh, wow.
Sure. What's your address? And he picked me up at 7 a.m, was meeting with Tim Hortons. Hey, how's it going? Shook my hand, and we went out the whole day, and we're friends to this day. And he was there when I shot my first bear. Wasn't with him that morning, But 2 years later, 3 years later, we were on a hunting trip, and yeah, and that's what it's all about, right? It's about those shared connections and asking. If you don't know, ask. So
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
that
Hunters
was,
like to talk.
yeah, it can tell. Travis has got a podcast because he likes to
Yeah.
talk.
You got it. You got it. You know, that
Yep.
podcast, we got some good stuff on there too. I think tomorrow we got camouflage, and it's when we recorded it around a campfire in a turkey hunt, talking about camouflage and
Love
concealment for
it.
hunters. And so people who are new to hunting or wanting to learn about caliber and firearms and the rest, there's tons of resources out there. And if you can find ones that are location specific to where you are, even better.
Absolutely. And that's how we met for the first time, was on a
Yes,
podcast.
that's right.
Right? Talking, just talking. And,
Yes.
and that's how this connection started, was again that mutual love of hunting and firearms and sharing information. And
Yeah.
I'm not sitting at a campfire right now, but you guys are. So
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm looking
Not
over the
our
mountains at a big
campfire.
one.
well, yeah. I guess you're there'd be a burn risk or burn closure there, isn't there? Or are you guys just
I,
outside of?
Yeah,
I
I
don't,
think there's an
I hope
evacuation
so.
notice at the moment, so
So
I think it would be
then
probably prudent.
chances
Probably
are,
Yeah.
prudent.
Yeah. It's smoky enough. We don't have any burning desire to light a fire and sit around. It's also hot too, so
it
we're pretty
is.
good. Yeah.
It's it, 3 days ago, it was 17, 18 degrees during the day. And I'm like, all right,
Yeah.
fall's here. Looking
Mm,
outside, it's all right. Leaves are kind of turning. And today
Yeah.
it's 32 degrees and I've got the overhead fan on. I'm like, well,
just
Yeah.
crazy.
it can't really make up its mind what it wants to do. And that's part of the draw to the outdoors. Every day is different.
Yep.
Yeah. You know
Yep.
what? And for people who are watching this, who want to get into hunting, I'd say start small because there are so many different things to learn, whether that's just learning your environment, learning how the seasons work or navigation or how the critters and the noises that happen out there. Start small. Start with
Mhm.
upland game or start waterfowl and start working your way up into the bigger and bigger game animals because they're going to require more time commitment,
Mhm.
more money for equipment, and
Yeah.
definitely more knowledge acquisition. And you don't want to mess those things up. So start small and have fun.
That's right. That's right. My daughter,
Mhm.
she turned 10 last September. And I know you've seen the post on Facebook of me bragging about her getting her core in April, right? And
Yep.
we're gonna go out this Friday because, well, September 1st, grouse opens up. She's got a
Hmm.
deer tag, so fingers crossed for that. So just it's she's been coming out with me since she was in diapers. I've got
Yeah.
great pictures of her sitting in her car seat with binoculars, just glassing. She doesn't know what she's looking for. She just looking.
But she's there
So
with dad,
that's exactly what it's all about, right?
and you're there with her, and it's just that connection that you form.
Mhm. Exactly.
Yeah.
And for her fourth or fifth birthday, I said, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" It's end of September, so we're right in hunting season, fishing season, whatever. And she says, "I want to go hunting, fishing, and trapping today." Sure
Nice.
can, sure
Uh,
can. So, all right, there's a
nice.
question. Hearing from many new hunters that online groups are not very open to new hunters asking questions and engaging online. Where else can new hunters meet others willing to teach? We kind of
So
just
I don't, you hear that you say social media, it's terrible. It's so much negativity. There's so much negativity in the news. And I'd question the person. I'd say, well, what are you putting out into social media? What are you putting out there? Because quite often what we see back in these is going to be an echo chamber of what it thinks we want to see. Some of the hunting forums, sure, could be negative if approached in a certain way. And we've all heard the stories. Person comes in and says, I'm brand new to hunting and I want to know where the best spot is to go. And they just start peppering people with questions. And that can get people's backs up. And they say, well, I'm not going to give away my secret spot and put some work in. And we're here to help you. We want to help to see people out there, but we want to see somebody put the effort in as well. So I think if a person were to approach the forums from the mindset knowing that some of these people are anonymous and maybe they might be a little bit more curt than face to face, but the same courtesy and approach, you'll probably find that you don't have as many negative encounters on some of these online forums or social media. And you can also steer clear. You can start seeing if there's going to be ones that are kind of in a negative topic. You can steer clear of it. But if you're looking to steer clear of the forums altogether, there are groups like the BC Wildlife Federation. Just go on the website, take a look at the different events that they're having. They've been holding, there's first day at range events they've been involved with, there's women's events, there's bow weekends, there's learn to hunt, how to hunt, even just sort of basic get-togethers. And that would be a good, I would say, first step to learning about others in the community. And there are other groups out there as well you can check out, but there are active and vibrant organizations and groups just like the Wildlife Federation that I would be leaning towards.
Yeah.
There's also, sorry, go on.
Go ahead, Jeff.
I was just going to say, if you're not in the Lower Mainland and not around any of the spots that BCWF does, like in-person events, there's also rod and gun clubs and fish and game clubs all over the place throughout the province. Most of those places are members of the Federation anyway, so you're kind of by association doing something with the Federation. But they'll have events all over the place. It's people that are probably into the same thing you are.
Yeah, and that's exactly my first foray into the outdoors, so to speak. When I moved to PG, I was given a free ticket to a game banquet, and look what happened. Here I am over my head with so many different memberships and so many different affiliations, and in so many. To say that I'm involved in conservation is putting it lightly, right? I'm all over it, as you know, and that came from meeting the right people at the right event, as was mentioned here, through Rod and Gun Club, that I ended up being president of for 6 years, and yeah, great friendships, great mentors, and just a ton of fun. Another one. Do you find many club members hunt or just primarily shoot?
Club members, as in gun club members?
Yeah.
Definitely depend on the club that you belong to. Absolutely. I mean, we just did a course over at the Nanaimo Fish and Game Club, and man, they got a lot of shooters, but they sure have a lot of hunters there too.
You sure do.
Some clubs are going to be very shooter specific. I mean, like Lower Mainland Abbotsford Fish and Game Club will have heavy contingent on like IPSC and different types of competitive shooting. Golden Club, and they're doing some pretty cool things in the outdoor field and the tagging of animals and the fishing and hunting. So it depends on the club, and there's going to be hopefully more than one club that you can start looking up, whether that's going to be an actual range club or an online club in your area.
Yeah, I think that's key. Is just because it says rod and gun or fish and game, that doesn't mean that's what your membership is.
That's right.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Like it's Nanaimo Fish and Game Club, right? And they are very heavily into the shooting, as you said. And yeah, you never know what you're getting into until you go there. And whether or not they shoot, whether or not they hunt, whether or not they fish, they're all great people, and they're willing to give their time and information to help new people get into it. So,
but the other neat thing about that is these clubs will quite often have subgroups, and if you don't find the group that you're looking for, you can approach the club, and very often you can start that group, because if you're interested in it, chances are other people will be interested. You could say, "Look, I just want to learn to hunt, and I want to start a brand new hunter or new hunter sort of program here. Is there anyone else around here who could help out with this?" And you'd start seeing hands go up when people want to put that level of initiative and effort in. Like anything in life, you get out what you put in.
That's right. And chances are you're not the first one with that idea. You're just the one that's got the guts to put your hands up and say, "Hey, I want to do this." It happened here with our hatchery here. When I joined, we had a hatchery that hadn't run in 12 years. We opened the doors, myself and who's now the president, opened the doors and went, "What's in here?" And the president at the time kind of laughed and said, "Well, have a look." It was troughs full of garbage. Long story short, we took the initiative, ran with it. A lot of hands went up, and now we're the most technologically advanced volunteer-run hatchery in British Columbia. The only one certified to work with endangered Chinook.
Wow.
So, yeah. Over $1 million in grants in 6 years.
Wow.
People paid attention. People threw their hands up, and the salmon support team that we've got now, some of the most passionate people I've ever met. One of the people on that team doesn't hunt, doesn't fish, doesn't shoot, is a member because he cares and loves the friendship that he's made.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, there's so many people that want to get involved. They just want an outlet for it. They want to know how to do it. And so many of the conservation groups and different clubs across the province give people that opportunity to like go climb a mountain and count how many sheep are sitting on the side of it. And just, you don't need to be a scientist, you don't need to be a biologist, anything like that. But they allow people to get involved.
That's right. That's right. Oh, good question here. What's a good all-around rifle when first learning to hunt?
Guess it depends on
Travis,
what
I'll
you
leave
want to
this to
hunt.
you.
Travis is getting
Guess
stuck
it
in the corner.
guess it depends on what you want to hunt. I mean, if I some of the lighter recoiling rifles are pretty popular nowadays. It's like a good strong Mauser action, bolt action rifle. If it can carry a couple of rounds in there and it's something that fits you, and it's not going to be, people look at calibers and they want to get a great big honking caliber and realize that every time they pull the trigger, the two most offensive things from that are going to be the noise and the recoil,
Yeah.
and they're flinching like crazy and can't hit the target. They're not doing themselves any favors. There really isn't the number one best caliber, the number one best all around rifle. But a general rule of thumb is something that's going to be within your budget that you can afford to be able to put some decent optics on it. So that'd be a scope and rings. Something that's not going to break the bank every time you want to feed it, i.e., buying ammunition for it. And you're going to enjoy shooting. So you'll go out there and actually use it. That would be a good all around. If you have an animal or a game in mind that you're going to be going after, like for example, if you really are dead set on hunting bison, there's going to be requirements for energy and transfer. You're going to need a larger caliber firearm to hunt bison. But if you just wanted to do some deer hunting and something that can be get you around in the area where you're at, I wouldn't break the bank. Good Mauser action, bolt action, mag fed. Um, yeah,
Yeah.
not a heavy
I
recoiling firearm. 30-06 has always been a caliber that a lot of people would recommend just because you can load it up and load it down. You can have heavy bullets and lighter bullets, and you can find ammunition pretty much anywhere.
that's one thing that we probably didn't think about for the last few years is some ammunition can be hard to get during hunting season. So if you're going with the new Gucci popular round, they're incredibly expensive and they're hard to find. So either plan accordingly and buy your ammunition in bulk ahead of time, or expect that you're going to have a hard time finding it. But with that said, though, Trav, if you're hunting waterfowl, you're going to want a shotgun, right? If
Yep,
you're hunting small game, you probably want a shotgun, or you can use a 22.
yep.
And any big game, you're going to want a rifle, and like just whatever you said, for find what works for you.
Yeah, decent center fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those 6.5 Creedmoors are pretty popular right now because they're lighter recoiling. But I mean, 260s were very capable around. Everyone's going to have their own opinion on what's the best, but there's that old saying, beware the person with one gun. I think originally it was beware the man with one gun.
Yeah.
He knows how to use it, right? Beware the person with one gun. They know how to use it. Just whatever you get, make sure you practice with it. It's not, you don't go out in hunting season and that's the time you start practicing. Use it throughout the year. Enjoy what you do. Try shooting from different positions. Try shooting standing, kneeling, sitting, prone, awkward positions, supported with your backpack. Like simulate something that you'd find out in the field. And you're going to definitely increase your chances if you are fortunate enough to be able to get within distance on an animal that is legal to harvest, of actually making that shot and putting it down.
Yeah. I think you nailed it in the first 30 seconds with the find one that fits you that you can shoot comfortably. I've seen so many people go, oh, I got a 300 Win short mag. I got a 300 Winchester. And they're like, yeah, get to the range and boom, they go, oh, that sucks. 4 shots into it. They don't think they're mag. And they got a big fat bruise and they don't want to shoot the gun anymore until it's time for hunting season. When, yeah, you're going to push, you're going to pull, you're going to flinch. That's not a good time. Find something that fits you comfortably that you can shoot all day.
It's like saying, what are the
Yeah.
best boots if I'm going to be going out on a goat hunt? Well, what works for me, I can tell you, it won't work for Tiff, and it's going to be a different best boot for Steve here, because everyone's feet are different. We're all built. We have different needs that we want out of it. So saying what's the best, You just can't do it. But if you have one that you enjoy shooting, that you like, it's going to be the best for you.
Yeah, that's right. Unless you're Jack O'Connor and then you pick the 270 and that puts down any game in North America.
That's right. You got it.
Yeah.
Another good one. What would you like to see change or improve in obtaining a hunting license?
Hmm. You know, there's there,
I'm not
there,
going to say it.
there's always the list of things that people would like to see. You know, they say, well, I wish there was live fire as a part of the course, or I wish there was field dressing an animal as a part of the course. And those would be fantastic things to have as part of the course. But when you're trying to systemize something, and safety's first and foremost, and you want to bring it to people from all different backgrounds and all different ages, really the way that the program is laid out right now in British Columbia is something that's been leaned on from old hunter education from IHEA, from the States, and it's been it works. So I don't think there's too much we'd really want to see change. Accessibility is the one that we typically see coming up as the number one question, request, or suggestion that we see. How do we make this more accessible to people from all different areas, walks of life? Because not everyone lives in the Lower Mainland, right? Not everyone lives in Prince George or in built-up city areas. That's where the online part has been very good. Yeah, I don't I you know I've got probably about 30 different suggestions and ideas in my back pocket, but as a whole for the program, it's doing pretty darn good.
Yeah,
But there's always room for improvement.
exactly. There's always going to be something. You and I could sit around a campfire and come up with 15 different things that we each
Mm-hmm.
want to change. Tiff could join the conversation, add in 15. By the time we're done having a conversation, there's now 100, right? There's so many little tiny things, but overall, I think the course is laid out well. It's it's easy to follow for everybody from 10 years old all the way up to no matter how old they want to be when they first get into it. Uh, yeah,
I think that
the one I do hear often is the more hands-on live
mm,
fire and bringing in an animal. But realistically, that's not doable. You have to take somebody from a classroom from 12 to 16 hours already, then take them to a rifle range, and then possibly a butcher shop type deal. You're adding a full day, and it's not really conducive to what's supposed to be a good, concise, informative learning environment. You're not really keeping that flow going. So
what I think
And
what
in
might be kind of neat is to lean on other countries and other states and sort of what they do, and where you don't want to have the barrier to entry to hunting to be so high that it's illusory to most people because they don't have the time or the resources to be able to get out and do that. You want to make it accessible to people. So that's where the FWID, the core to FWID idea is there is accessibility, but creating sort of a tiered system. Like if you go into, I believe it's Washington State, where they have mentor programs, and mentors can go out and they can bring people, and in exchange for them giving up time in their hunting season, they get increased odds next year on their limited entry hunting. Or over in Germany, where they have all the history and tradition, and they talk about dog handling, and they talk about flora and fauna, and all these different, like, these are really cool things as a tiered system. I think that would be a neat approach for BC to look at, but I don't think the very first step should be made more difficult to get into, but perhaps have a tier where they can learn more, all these different pieces.
I like that. I like that.
and with that being said, BCWF does actually have a course that they're running called the Learn to Hunt Academy, where you guys
Mhm.
are showing live fire. And
Yeah.
we have Silver Core staff there helping you guys out. They're doing, field dressing, and like you're bridging that gap between what the core course doesn't cover and that next step to give people just that little bit more confidence that might need it. In a typical core course, there's maybe one or two people that are like, damn, I really wish it had field dressing. I really want to learn how to do that. Watching it on a video is just it's not how I learn. I want to get in there. So it gives them an opportunity to do that, which is amazing. Super
Yeah.
excited to see how that goes.
And that was part of the idea when we started spitballing the in person of that. The feedback we're hearing is exactly that. We want to learn how to butcher. We want to learn how to sight in our rifle. We want to learn how to shoot a little bit farther. We want a little bit of wilderness survival, some first aid. And we put it into a couple of day program, and we're grateful that you guys are taking part in that as well. And there was no doubt in my mind when we started tossing around instructors that Silver Corps, yeah, they'll be all over this. So,
we love Federation.
We love community.
Yeah, I won't be making this inaugural course, unfortunately, because I will be in northwest of Dees Lake on a flight.
Nice.
So
good for you.
Nice.
Yeah, going to be a good time. Been in the area once 2 years ago. We came out with a couple of great big moose, and this time it's a mixed bag we're going for: caribou, moose, sheep, whatever happens to be in the area that we got tagged for. But the most important thing we're going for is the memories and the conversation, right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
So sounds awesome.
I think our hunting adventures for this season might be put on a bit of a hiatus because of Tiff's broken foot there. But, we had one lined up in Hungary. We did a hunt this year over in Molokai, and that's something that not everybody realizes, is that once you go through the program in BC, there's reciprocity in other countries. You can hunt in different places with your BC hunting license. You just talk to their government, show them your credentials, and they say, "Hey, you've taken the core course. You're good to go over here."
Well, that's good to know. I knew you guys went somewhere over in Europe area. I didn't know exactly where it was, but that's kind of cool to know that our core standard, our hunting standard, is accepted as valid in other countries. That shows we're on the right track with what we're doing.
It totally does. Yeah.
So, all right. Any more questions, anybody? Give it 30 seconds. See if anybody's a slow finger typer like I am. But no, that was great. I think we covered a lot of stuff there in an hour. And Tiff, you made it through. That was good.
You made it through.
I didn't pass
painkillers
out.
And all.
That was good. That was good.
There was a couple stumbles where I forgot where I was, but got back on track.
But that's par for the course, though, right? When you get to our age, it's like you forget who you are anyway.
Morphine doesn't help, that's for sure.
No, it doesn't. You've got quite a nice background compared to what I got right now, so I'm kind of jealous. So.
Steve, thanks so much for setting this up.
Pretty good.
Hey, I totally appreciate you guys taking the hour out of your busy day from the look of it. And we'll see you next week for the PAL. We're gonna have fun with that one.
Sounds good.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. You have a good night.
Take care.
Thank you very much. Okay. See ya.